The stranded mechanic, the last light on Kepler Station. The emergency lights of Kepler Mining Station cast long shadows across the abandoned corridors, their red glow pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Marcus Reed wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his grease-stained hand, leaving another dark smudge across his already dirty face. For 3 weeks now, he had been the sole occupant of this forgotten outpost, surviving on emergency rations and the stubborn hope that someone would eventually come looking for him. The mining corporation had pulled out suddenly when the asteroid belt proved less profitable than expected, leaving behind only their equipment and one very unlucky maintenance engineer who had been deep in the reactor core when the evacuation order came through. By the time Marcus had worked his way out of the maze of conduits and power systems, the last transport ship was already a distant speck against the starfield. Marcus had always been good with his hands, even as a child growing up in the industrial districts of New Terra. He could take apart any machine and put it back together better than before. It was a gift that had served him well throughout his career, from fixing atmospheric processes on frontier worlds to maintaining the massive extractors that had once operated from this very station. But all his mechanical genius couldn't conjure a working starship out of thin air. The communication array had been damaged in a meteor shower 2 days after the evacuation, leaving him cut off from the rest of human space. He had managed to a weak distress beacon using parts from the mining equipment, but its range was limited. Anyone who might pick up the signal would have to be relatively close, and traffic through the Kepler system had been sparse even before the mining operation shut down. Marcus had spent his time productively, at least. The station's fusion reactor was running more efficiently than it ever had under corporate oversight, and he had repaired systems that had been neglected for years. The hydroponics bay was now producing fresh vegetables, and he had even managed to get the old entertainment center working again. If he was going to be stranded, he might as well be comfortable, but comfort was a poor substitute for human contact. The silence of space was a heavy thing, broken only by the gentle hum of life support systems and the occasional groan of metal expanding and contracting with temperature changes. Marcus found himself talking to the station's automated systems, more than he cared to admit, treating the computer's responses as if they came from an old friend rather than lines of code. The unexpected visitor it was during his daily maintenance routine that Marcus first spotted the streak of light against the distant nebula. At first, he thought it might be another meteor, but the trajectory was all wrong. This object was under power, though clearly in distress. Through the station's telescope, he could make out the unmistakable signs of a damaged spacecraft trailing plasma and debris as it limped toward the asteroid belt. Marcus rushed to the communication console, fingers flying over the controls as he attempted to hail the approaching vessel. Static filled the speakers, but underneath the interference, he could hear something that made his heart race. A voice clearly intelligent, speaking in a language he had never heard before. The cadence was musical, almost hypnotic, but the tone carried unmistakable urgency. The ship was clearly not of human design. Its hull gleamed with an opalescent sheen that seemed to shift colors as it tumbled through space, and its organic curves bore no resemblance to the angular efficiency of human engineering. Crystalline structures jutted from various points along its surface, some dark and cracked, others still pulsing with faint energy. It was beautiful and alien in equal measure, like a deep-sea creature that had somehow learned to sail between the stars. As Marcus watched through the telescope, the alien vessel's condition became increasingly apparent. Atmosphere was venting from multiple hull breaches, and several of the crystal formations had been completely shattered. Whatever had attacked this ship had been thorough in their work. The vessel was dying, and if there were any survivors aboard, they wouldn't last much longer without immediate assistance. Marcus had always believed that intelligence was rare and precious in the universe. The discovery of alien life had been humanity's greatest scientific achievement, though actual contact had been limited to a few brief encounters with automated probes and distant observations of advanced civilizations. To find an alien craft, here now, when he was perfectly positioned to help, seemed like more than mere coincidence. Without hesitation, Marcus began preparing the station's maintenance pod for launch. The small craft was designed for external repairs and cargo transfers, not rescue operations, but it would have to do. He loaded it with emergency medical supplies, portable life support equipment, and every tool he might need to perform emergency repairs on an unknown technology. First approach, the maintenance pod's engines fired with a satisfying rumble, pushing Marcus away from the station and toward the drifting alien vessel. As he drew closer, the true scale of the ship became apparent. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest human freighter he had ever seen, yet it moved through space with the grace of a living thing. The damage was even worse than it had appeared from a distance, with entire sections of the hull peeled back like flower petals. Marcus activated his suit's recording systems, knowing that whatever happened next would be of immense scientific value. First contact protocols had been drilled into every spacer, but those protocols assumed official diplomatic channels and prepared xenobiological teams. They said nothing about a lone mechanic encountering a dying alien ship in the middle of nowhere. The pod's sensors detected multiple atmosphere breaches, but also indicated that portions of the alien vessel were still pressurized. Life signs were difficult to read through the exotic hull materials, but there was definitely something alive in there. Marcus maneuvered his pod toward what appeared to be a docking port, though its design was unlike anything in human technology. The alien ship's systems seemed to recognize his approach. Panels of light began to pulse along the hull in complex patterns, and the docking port began to reshape itself, flowing like liquid metal until it formed something resembling a standard atmospheric seal. Marcus had heard theories about adaptive technology, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. As the docking clamps engaged with a strange, melodic chime, Marcus realized that his life was about to change forever. Whatever lay beyond, that airlock would challenge everything he thought he knew about technology, biology, and humanity's place in the universe. But that was a problem for later. Right now, someone needed his help, and Marcus Reed had never been able to turn his back on a machine in distress. He grabbed his toolkit, checked his suit's life support one final time, and stepped toward the airlock. The alien ship waited beyond, its secrets hidden in chambers that had never known human footsteps. Marcus took a deep breath, cycled the airlock, and stepped into the unknown, carrying with him nothing but his mechanical skills and the quiet determination that had always defined humanity's greatest achievements. The corridor beyond was like stepping into a living cathedral, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to his presence. And somewhere in the depths of this dying ship, something was waiting for him to work another miracle with nothing but human ingenuity and a mechanic's stubborn refusal to give up. First contact and repair center the living ship. The corridor that greeted Marcus beyond the airlock defied every principle of engineering he had ever learned. The walls were not walls in any conventional sense, but rather a seamless fusion of organic, curves and crystalline structures that pulsed with their own inner light. Veins of luminescent energy ran along the surfaces like neural pathways, dimming and brightening in response to some unknown rhythm. The air itself seemed different, carrying a faint metallic taste and the subtle fragrance of ozone mixed with something floral and alien. Marcus advanced slowly, his bootsteps muffled by a floor that felt almost soft beneath his feet. His suit's environmental sensors struggled to analyze the atmosphere, reporting readings that fluctuated wildly as the ship's systems apparently tried to adapt to his presence. The temperature was comfortable, and oxygen levels were surprisingly close to human normal, though the atmospheric composition included trace elements that had no terrestrial equivalent. Emergency lighting strips ran along what might generously be called the ceiling, though the boundaries between floor, wall, and ceiling blurred in the organic architecture. Many of the light strips were dark or flickering, obvious casualties of whatever catastrophe had befallen the vessel. Marcus pulled out his portable scanner and began taking readings, trying to understand the ship's basic systems well enough to help. The scanner's display showed energy patterns unlike anything in human technology. Instead of discrete circuits and power conduits, the alien ship appeared to use a distributed network that resembled a nervous system more than traditional electronics. Damage to one area seemed to affect systems throughout the ship, as if the vessel were quite literally wounded rather than merely broken. As Marcus moved deeper into the ship, he began to hear something that made him pause. It was faint at first, almost lost beneath the hum of failing systems, but unmistakably organic, breathing, slow, labored, but definitely breathing. Someone was alive in here, and from the sound of it, they were in distress. The dying systems following. The sound led Marcus to what appeared to be the ship's central hub, a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing crystalline structure that rose from floor to ceiling like a massive tree. The crystal was cracked in several places, its light dim and inconsistent. Streams of some kind of luminous fluid leaked from the fractures, pooling on the floor and slowly evaporating into faintly glowing mist. Marcus recognized this as the ship's primary power source, though its operating principles were completely alien to him. Where human ships relied on fusion reactors or antimatter containment, this vessel seemed to draw energy from the crystalline matrix itself. The damage was severe, but not irreparable. At least, he hoped it wasn't irreparable. The breathing sounds were stronger here, coming from somewhere behind the crystal formation. Marcus worked his way round the massive structure, scanning for access panels or maintenance hatches. Instead, he found something that made him stop in his tracks. A section of the wall had become transparent, revealing what lay beyond. It was clearly a medical facility of some kind, with equipment that bore the same organic crystalline hybrid design as the rest of the ship. And there, connected to a web of glowing tubes and monitoring devices, was the ship's passenger. Marcus had seen artistic depictions of various alien species discovered by humanity's deep space probes, but nothing had prepared him for this first direct encounter. The being was humanoid in basic structure, but distinctly alien in every detail. Her skin was a pale silver blue, marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living tattoos. She was tall and elegant, with features that would have been considered beautiful by human standards, if not for their clearly alien nature. What struck Marcus most was the obvious sophistication of the medical equipment keeping her alive. This was not some primitive species that had stumbled into space travel. The technology surrounding the alien woman represented a level of advancement that humanity could only dream of achieving. Emergency intervention, the aliens' vital signs, displayed on monitors that adapted their readouts to symbols Marcus could somehow understand, were clearly critical. Whatever had happened to the ship had left her badly injured, and the failing power systems were compromising her life support. Marcus had perhaps an hour before the medical equipment shut down entirely. He activated his suit's translation protocols, hoping that the universal mathematical principles built into the software might find some common ground with the alien systems. To his surprise, the ship seemed to respond, panels lighting up with symbols that gradually shifted toward forms his suit could interpret. The ship's AI, if it could be called that, was clearly sophisticated beyond human understanding. It seemed to recognize that Marcus was trying to help, and it began providing him with diagnostic information about the damaged systems. The data stream was overwhelming at first, but Marcus had spent years learning to read the vital signs of complex machinery. The principles were universal, even if the implementation was revolutionary. Working methodically, Marcus began tracing the ship's power distribution network. The primary crystal was damaged, but stable. The real problem was in the secondary systems, where cascade failures had shut down entire sections of the ship's neural network. It was like trying to perform brain surgery on a patient who was also having a heart attack. Marcus pulled out his emergency repair kit, knowing that nothing in it was designed for alien technology. But metal was metal, and energy was energy. He began by stabilizing the power fluctuations, using his suit's portable fusion cell to provide emergency power to the most critical systems. The alien medical equipment responded immediately, its monitoring displays shifting from alarming red to cautious amber. The awakening as the life support systems stabilized. Marcus noticed changes in the alien woman's condition. Her breathing became steadier, and the shifting patterns on her skin took on a more vibrant appearance. The medical equipment began what appeared to be an automated revival sequence, slowly bringing her back to consciousness. Marcus positioned himself where she would be able to see him when she awakened, but far enough away to avoid appearing threatening. He had no idea how this species might react to finding an alien aboard their ship, especially one who had been manipulating their technology. The alien woman's eyes opened slowly, and Marcus felt his breath catch. They were large and expressive, a deep violet color that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and experience. For a moment, she simply stared at the ceiling, apparently gathering her strength. Then her gaze found Marcus, and her entire body went rigid with shock. Marcus raised his hands slowly, palms outward, in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peaceful intent. He activated his suit's external speakers and spoke slowly and clearly, knowing she wouldn't understand the words, but hoping his tone would convey his intentions. "I'm here to help," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the medical chamber. "Your ship was damaged. I've stabilized the power systems, but you need proper repairs." The alien woman studied him with those remarkable violet eyes, and Marcus could practically see her mind working. She was clearly intelligent, clearly aware of her situation, and probably trying to decide whether he represented salvation or a new threat, communication breakthrough. What happened next surprised Marcus. More than anything else he had experienced since boarding the alien vessel. The woman spoke, and while her words were in an utterly foreign language, the ship's systems immediately began providing translation. Symbols appeared in the air between them, shifting and changing until they formed words Marcus could understand. "You are not Vorthok," she said, her translated voice carrying tones of confusion and growing awareness. What species are you? How did you access my ship's systems? Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in human history. Not just first contact, but active communication with an advanced alien intelligence. The responsibility of the moment was staggering. "I'm human," he said, watching as the ship translated his words into her language. "My name is Marcus Reed. I'm a mechanical engineer. I found your ship drifting and detected life signs. I had to help." The alien woman attempted to sit up, and Marcus could see the effort it cost her. Whatever had happened, her injuries were severe. But her eyes never left his face, studying him with the intensity of someone trying to solve a complex puzzle. "Human," she repeated, as if testing the word. "I have never heard of your species. How is it that you can interface with Vorthok technology? Our systems are biologically coded. They should not respond to alien neural patterns." Marcus looked around at the responsive walls and the helpful diagnostic displays. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just tried to understand what was broken and fix it. The ship seemed to help me." Something in the alien woman's expression changed, a look of dawning realization that seemed to carry profound implications. "The ship responded to you willingly," she said slowly. "It chose to trust you with its secrets. This should not be possible. Unless... Double quotes, she paused, studying Marcus with new intensity. "Unless you possess something our scientists believed was impossible. True technological intuition, the ability to understand the intent behind any mechanism, regardless of its origin."